paying attention to this whole Bill Gates shit, but it's kind of crazy. Um, it basically says that what confirms what I've thought and others have thought for a very long time. 10 years ago, they said we were crazy talking about chemtrails, okay? And when we said that they were modifying the weather, that they had the ability to manipulate it, everyone thought we were crazy. But Bill Gates has come forward, says he supports a plan to actually cool down the Earth's climate, right, by using chemtrails to block out sunlight and essentially cool down the Earth. And that's exactly what a chemtrail is, I had been talking about it for a very long time, saying that chemtrails, right, are controlling the weather. And I actually, and I try and be scientific about it too. I've done experiments, I've tested hypothesis, right? And through my research, I've noticed every time there has been a very big storm, a very bad storm that seemed very strange, unlike the storms we've had in the past, okay? The day before, you look up in the sky and there's shit tons of chemtrails all over, right? And you don't see it on any other day, but it's always the day before a very bad storm, okay? The tornadoes we had, I think it was back in 2013, okay? In 2015, before these tornadoes that passed through this area, the day before, I noted and I wrote down that there was chemtrails. And I've seen this every bad storm. I can actually predict the weather. I know when there's going to be bad weather the next day because I look up in the sky and I see the chemtrails, and the next day there is going to be bad weather. And essentially what Bill Gates wants to do is what killed the dinosaurs. That's how scientists theorize that the dinosaurs went extinct, because apparently this meteorite, right, crashed down to Earth, and it was so big that it threw up a giant dust plume which encompassed the Earth, okay, and blocked out sunlight, that it actually cooled down the Earth and caused an ice age and caused death and destruction throughout the whole planet. And this is what they scientists have theorized would happen if the supervolcano in Yellowstone would erupt. And now they want to try this out and say, hey, let's do an experiment and see if we can change the climate of the Earth. It's like people don't watch Jurassic Park, which basically, is a great philosophy as to why it's not good to try and play God, because you can't control the weather. You can't control nature. These things are out of your control. And eventually what's going to happen is you're going to start a fire you can't control. And next thing you know, the whole forest is on fire because you thought you could contain this and you can't. And we need to stop trying to play God, okay? Because we're not God. We're not a God. We're not the God, okay? We are going to essentially destroy ourselves because we're idiots and we try to be something that we're not, okay? I'm not Michael Jordan. I don't go out and try and play in the NBA because I would get schooled, man. I suck at basketball, okay? And I'm not gonna go out there and try to be an NBA player because I can't play basketball. That's just something I wasn't gifted with. So I don't try, Like, it's not an issue of you shouldn't go out and try your dreams. It's an issue of just realization that there are some things that are out of your control, and you have to learn to accept that, and you find your gifts and you focus on that, right? And that's sort of life, I never was a good test taker, right? But I was very intelligent, and I felt that, like Albert Einstein had said, that intelligence wasn't about being able to memorize and repeat. It was about your ability to adapt and change and to discover new things and to present new theories. And I think that we have to look at this and say, look, you guys need to stop playing with our lives here. What you're doing is very dangerous, and there are real consequences of this. And perhaps this is why the extraterrestrials have been visiting us for so long, and why that there are several abductees who say, look, they're saying that the extraterrestrial are telling them that be careful, you guys are going to destroy yourself, and we're here giving you a warning, okay? And this is the stuff that they're trying to warn us from, that don't make this mistake that we did, don't make this mistake that other planets did and destroyed themselves, essentially. But I just think it's crazy, and it confirms what a lot of us thought, that they were manipulating the weather, and that they were testing weather manipulation, and that they were able to modify the climate using chemtrails. And that is now proven science, right? That's backed by Bill Gates, one of the richest men in the world. He backs this, and it's proven science now that chemtrails do exist. So I was like, when are you going to start taking us people who they call conspiracy theorists seriously? But I don't know, it's just kind of ridiculous that for the longest time people didn't believe in this. And I said, no, look, the science is there, the evidence is there, and there's proof there, but no one wanted to take it seriously. But now Bill Gates is talking about it, and sure enough, it confirms what a lot of people thought, that there are chemtrails, and they are manipulating the weather and trying to play God, and essentially it's going to bite them in the ass. But with that being said, you probably wonder what I'm drinking today. This is actually Bat Squatch. It's by Rogue Brewing Company. An amazing beer. I actually discovered it a couple days ago. I found it because I like cryptids, obviously. And I seen that they had a beer called Bat Squatch. Wanted to give it a try. And just amazing, It has a hint of citrus. It's sort of sweet, but also a little bitter at the same time. It's like a perfect combination of beers, and I really do enjoy it. Sometimes I'm not always the biggest IPA fan, but this I do like, and it's got a good taste to it. And I'm not a beer concierge, but I do really like this. And out of a lot of beers that I've tried that are craft beers, I'd say this is one of the top ones that I've tried. I'd probably give it like, I definitely say I give this like an 8.5 out of 10, because it is really good. It's called Bat Squatch by Rogue Brewing Company. And I wasn't paid to promote this or anything. This is simply just me trying this out on my own, happened to stumble upon it and wanted to give it a try. But with that being said, I want to talk about the recent uptick in UFO sightings. It seems over the pandemic, there's been tons and tons of UFO sightings. And, that brought me back to the whole Area 51 thing, when that whole thing was going on, that people were going to visit Area 51, and there was the Area 51 raid, and the dumb Naruto guy who basically planned something and then tried to make a bunch of money off it and never showed up, and kind of screwed the people over there in Rachel, Nevada. But anyways, a lot of people think that Roswell is the only UFO crash that's happened, right? But there's been several other UFO crashes. It's just that Roswell was the one that was publicized. It was the one that people talked about. But there have been many UFO crashes that have happened in this country alone, let alone a lot of other countries. Okay? Going back before Roswell, there was actually other crashes in North Dakota and in Missouri, right? a lot of people don't know about the Roswell in Missouri, okay? And this one is one that, if I were to believe a UFO crash story, which I do believe some of them, I do believe a good amount of them, you know, I don't speculate that something happened there at Roswell and that something crashed. But the best UFO story that I believe probably is this story, okay? In Cape Girardeau, Missouri, and I apologize if I pronounced it wrong. I think it was 1940s, okay? A reverend, a minister, a pastor, right? He was notified by the local authorities that there had been some sort of plane crash. And he was asked to come out to this crash site because there was apparently victims, and they wanted them to come out to, the pastor to come out to read them their last rites, okay? And so that's initially what this priest had thought, that he was getting called out to a crash and that he was going to read these people that were dying their last rites. So he goes there to this crash site, and to his amazement, he sees that it's not a plane crash, that there is this disc-shaped saucer that has sort of broken apart, and he sees two bodies that do not look human, that look very much like something not of this planet, and he sees that one of them is dead, and the other one looks like it is about dead, or could possibly be dead. But he realizes, okay, I don't think it could read them the last rite because I'm not exactly sure what these are. And then immediately the fire department was there and the local authorities were there, and all of a sudden the military shows up and they pretty much tell everybody, you know, there's nothing to see here, you know, it's nothing, you know, just be quiet about it, don't talk about it, and they sent them on their way. And later on, this minister, towards the end of his life, he confides in his granddaughter and tells this story about what had happened in Cape Girardeau. And this is like a very significant crash where you actually have extraterrestrials involved. You see, because with Roswell, the substantial evidence that we have support that there was something crashed there in Roswell. That's no doubt, okay? But something crashed on Mac Razzle's ranch, okay, in the 1940s. But there was never any bodies found with apparently the first crash site, which was on Mac Razzle's ranch, okay? He'd found just a debris field, and he reported it to the Air Force, and they come out and cleaned it up, okay? It was only that later on, a second story came out about a geologist who was studying with some students, and they happened to stumble upon a that at the same time Mac Razzle reported this crash, at the same time, this geologist and some students happened to stumble upon a second crash site where they actually found what they believe were extraterrestrials, and two bodies that were recovered, and that the military told them to leave. And this is how you get the story that not only was a UFO found, a flying disc found, but they actually found extraterrestrial bodies. But this is a story where you actually have this witness, like Mac Razzle, who not only sees debris in a flying saucer, but he sees extraterrestrial bodies, and that's why this makes this very believable. And you know, there's other crash sites, much like Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. Okay, that's a famous crash site that not a lot of people know about, but it's just right outside of Pennsylvania. And this was about like 30 years ago. That this object was seen in Canada, was seen in Minnesota, was seen in Ohio, and this object that was seen was actually changing based on its flight trajectory. It actually changed trajectory, and it actually traveled in different directions, unlike meteorites. So we knew it wasn't a meteorite, we knew it was an object just falling from space. This thing was able to change direction, and then it initially crashed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania, where several witnesses seen it crash. They thought it was a plane that had crashed. The fire department was notified, and they went out to search for the wreckage in the area they'd seen the crash. They broke off into several crews. One of the crews actually discovered the crash site initially, okay? And when they discovered the crash site, the firemen say that they see this object that looks like an acorn shape, about 6 feet tall and 6 feet wide. And on it, there are what appears to be some sort of hieroglyphics, is the best way to describe it, a language they couldn't understand, that they'd never seen before. And they said it was a solid metallic object that looked like an acorn shape. And it had this hieroglyphic sort of writing on it. And at the time that they went searching for it and they found it, the military was there. The military shows up, tells them you need to leave, we're taking over from here, and basically shushes them away, okay? And they don't let anybody around the site, they contain it. And in the middle of the night, people report in this town seeing the military with a flatbed truck remove an object from the area that looks exactly like this acorn-shaped thing that they had been talking about. And you have a whole town that actually experienced this, that's seen this thing crash, that's seen this thing up close and personal. You have firefighters, you have, a lot of people in this community that actually witnessed it and witnessed the military presence. So they knew there was something that crashed. They knew that they were trying to retrieve something. They just didn't know what it was. And then, after all these years, there's never been anything that's been released or declassified that said this was some sort of Russian satellite or what this object was. In fact, there's 100% deniability that anything ever crashed in Kecksburg, Pennsylvania. So you see, you have all these sort of UFO crashes and things like that around this country that makes me speculate that there could be several different type of UFO craft in our possession, and that there could be extraterrestrials in our possession. And the problem is that these haven't been publicized, these haven't been researched, and they don't want to talk about these, but they are out there. And it was just interesting when I was thinking about Area 51, how everybody thought like there was a connection between Roswell, but what about all these other crashes that had happened that no one really talks about? So with that being said, the next thing that I really wanted to talk about was a lot of people ask me, if you had to say without a doubt, what is the most haunted place in the United States? Because a lot of places take this title and they give themselves this title. What would you say in this country is the most haunted place? And I believe without a doubt that I can say 100% that is the Myrtles Plantation. Some of the best evidence of a haunting of ghosts have come from the Myrtles Plantation. There are several reports of spirits there. There are many spirits that inhabit this building, and I think that if you're looking to have a paranormal experience, I go to the Myrtles Plantation, and I tell you why, okay? Because you have, it's believed to be 13 to 14 murders that have occurred. Just murders alone, not natural deaths, but murders that have occurred at this property, okay? And on top of that, probably a bunch of other natural deaths that have occurred there. And one thing I've noticed with these southern states is that I've often theorized that there are conditions present in the southern portion of the United States that make it ideal for materialization of spirits, for these manifestations of physical apparitions, full body apparitions, okay? And you have the right amount of humidity, electrical storms, things like that, that allow for these spirits to materialize. And so not only do you have this place that has a lot of history, that has a lot of different energies attached to it, you have a place that has the right conditions for a spirit to manifest itself. And so that's why I think Myrtles Plantation is probably the most haunted place in this country, if not the world. And, you know, this place was built in 1796. It's almost 200 plus years old. A lot of historical events have happened there, Civil War, things like that, okay? So this place has a lot of connections with a lot of different energies. There's a lot of deaths. It served as a plantation. There were slaves there. There was a lot of good people there. There was a lot of bad people there. There's been recent deaths even. You know, there was a caretaker not too long who died there. The spirit is seen there. Spirits of slaves, spirits of young children. But what's interesting about this place is that some of the best photographic evidence of ghosts, I believe, have came from this place. And what's interesting is some of these photos have come not from paranormal investigators, but just by happenstance. The owners of the property themselves, right, they were taking pictures for insurance reasons. And they sent these pictures to the insurance company. And in one of the pictures, they sent it back to the owners of the Myrtles Plantation. And they said, you know, we can't use this picture because one of your staff is actually in the picture. And the owners who took the picture said, no, there is no staff or anyone here when we took the pictures. And so when they looked at the picture, they noticed that there appears to be a woman in a dress and a bonnet, but she's transparent and she's on the porch. And this goes hand in hand with a spirit named Chloe who's been seen on the property. And there's also been a picture of a young child in the window that was taken by a paranormal investigator. That seems very legit. You see a lot of ghost photos these days, but some of the best paranormal photographies come from the Myrtles Plantation. And once you see it and you say, you know, this isn't just some glare, this doesn't look like a glare or something to do with the camera or the surroundings, this looks like an actual apparition. You see physical features, you see coloration, you can actually see, you know, clothing. And I think that this place produces the best paranormal evidence out there. And I had an opportunity to go out there with my girlfriend, and unfortunately we got too busy and we couldn't go out there. We're hoping we can get back there sometime and do an investigation, but they give permission to us to come out, and I was hoping to be able to do an investigation there and to record it, but unfortunately we got too busy with our schedules. We couldn't make it out there. So I really hope I can go out there, because I believe that Myrtles Plantation could be the key to helping us better understand ghosts and what they are and why they're here, and sort of their makeup, their compositional makeup. What is a ghost? The ghost DNA, what we've been searching for, essentially. And I'd love to get out there. I'd love to check it out and see if we can find more than just pictures and EVPs. Can we get physical scientific evidence? And that's what I mean, scientific evidence, to support, to get the scientific community to say, look, we want to take this serious. We want to investigate ghosts, and we want to find out what they are, you know? And the biggest problem with the paranormal and the paranormal community, and I've said this many times, is that these paranormal shows are ruining what it means to be a paranormal investigator, the work that we're doing, that parapsychologist, that ufologist, that cryptozoologist, that these people are doing, right? The real people out there that are doing the work, that aren't trying to make a show, that aren't trying to get rich off of it, that are actually studying this thing, that are interesting, they're tainting the work that we're doing. People like Zach Bagans and Giorgio Tsoukalos are fucking with the work that we're trying to do. And it's screwing us over because we cannot get real evidence. And I know that a lot of people, if there is real evidence, you don't want people coming up with all this fake evidence and fake shit and making things up. You want the truth. And I think that we deserve the truth. But, yeah, let's talk Giorgio Tsoukalos. I'm a big Ancient Aliens fans. I always have been. My girlfriend and I, we watch Ancient Aliens religiously around here. I love it. And there's some people on Ancient Aliens I really love, and I feel that they're legitimate and they're trying to do real research into the ancient astronaut theory. And I'm a big believer in the ancient astronaut theory. But I also hate fakes and I hate phonies. I hate people that taint the work that real paranormal investigators are trying to do. Okay? And a lot of people love Giorgio Tsoukalos. You know, I was a big Giorgio Tsoukalos fan. I love the hair. I love the, you know, his wit and his likability. Okay, but you know, you have to understand that Giorgio Tsoukalos is for show, right? He's the face of the ancient astronaut theory. He's the face of Ancient Aliens, of the show, right? And you have to understand how it all comes down to, okay? Giorgio Tsoukalos has no credentials, no real credentials in ufology, and he has no credentials in archaeology or history, okay? His background is in sports broadcasting. He has a degree in sports broadcasting, and he got his start in Europe following bodybuilding competitions. And in fact, he was part of this movement of European bodybuilders who came over here to America for better opportunities with that, and which gave us Arnold Schwarzenegger, who's awesome, right? Love me some Arnold Schwarzenegger, okay? And so Giorgio Tsoukalos came over here to America following the bodybuilding competitions, okay? And he runs into a big guy in the ancient astronaut theory, Eric Von Däniken. And Eric Von Däniken basically says, hey, look, I got this idea for ancient astronaut theory, for a show, for what now, we can make a lot of money off this. Let's do this thing. And so he fakes credentials for Giorgio Tsoukalos. And I'm going to get to that in a second. But, you know, if you follow Giorgio Tsoukalos, he claims that he published this magazine, right, that does not exist. Okay, if you go and look up this magazine, you can't find it anywhere. No one can find a copy of this magazine, but he claims that he was an editor and that he created this magazine that was very popular, but yet no one's ever heard of it. No one owns a physical copy of this. You can't find it anywhere. At the same time, he's also said he's published a book, which no one can find. You cannot find it in libraries. You can't find it in bookstores. You can't find it on Amazon. This book does not exist. And all of his credentials, you cannot find any actual proof of those credentials. And that is the biggest thing, where it's like, and I forget what the name of his magazine is, but if you go to Wikipedia, you can find this and what it says his credentials are. But if you go and look up these credentials don't exist. There's no such magazine. There's no such books that he's written that actually exist, that you can actually get your physical hand on, or that you get a physical copy of. But that goes back to Eric Von Däniken, okay? Eric Von Däniken is a fraud, right? And he writes The Chariots of a God, Chariots of the Gods, which is a best-selling book, okay? But the problem is that Chariots of the Gods was actually ripped off from other authors who came before him, who had proposed the ancient astronaut theory, who wrote books and with very similar titles. And actually, the ancient astronaut theory goes back to a book that was written about Cthulhu, about how they proposed that the extraterrestrials may have intermingled with the ancient civilizations and affected humanity and things like that. Okay, so he stole all this, creates this book, and he gets famous off it. But you have to look at Eric Von Däniken, right? He's a fraud, okay? If you look at his record, he's been arrested several times, okay? For fraud, for embezzlement, for forgery. Throughout his career, he has basically ripped off people. He worked at a hotel, he forged documents, and embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars to basically write his book, which he stole from other people to create this ancient astronaut theory. And he forged documents and things like that, and that ended up him up in prison. And he spent several years in prison. In fact, he wrote his follow-up to Chariots of the Gods in prison. And so he has a history of forging documents, of embezzlement, of fraud. In fact, he was quoted as saying that he stole money to live a playboy lifestyle, and he used his lifestyle to make connections to basically get his book out there and to rise to fame. And then he sees this young George Tsoukalos, and he says, here's an opportunity to use this guy as the face of our ancient astronaut theory that we stole from someone else. He can sell this for us and make us a lot of money. And he became the face of ancient astronauts, the ancient astronaut theories, and of ancient aliens. And if you watch Ancient Aliens, I watch a lot of paranormal shows, so I could see the fakeness in it. And one of the things that he does on several occasions is he basically reiterates what other people say. And he always says, is it possible? Or perhaps extraterrestrials have visited us, and things like that. Or perhaps this was extraterrestrials. And he just kind of reiterates that thing over and over again. In every episode, he says the same catchphrases, and he doesn't really actually present real scientific evidence. So I have a big issue with that, that he's presenting himself as this ufologist, this archaeologist, when he doesn't actually do that. He, in fact, in the show, he actually meets with real archaeologists or real people, has them explain what they found, and then tries to. Throughout his career, he has basically ripped off people. He worked at a hotel, he forged documents, and embezzled hundreds of thousands of dollars to basically write his book, which he stole from other people to create this ancient astronaut theory. And he forged documents and things like that, and that ended up him up in prison. And he spent several years in prison. In fact, he wrote his follow-up to Chariots of the Gods in prison. And so he has a history of forging documents, of embezzlement, of fraud. In fact, he was quoted as saying that he stole money to live a playboy lifestyle, and he used his lifestyle to make connections to basically get his book out there and to rise to fame. And then he sees this young George Tsoukalos, and he says, here's an opportunity to use this guy as the face of our ancient astronaut theory that we stole from someone else. He can sell this for us and make us a lot of money. And he became the face of ancient astronauts, the ancient astronaut theories, and of ancient aliens. And if you watch Ancient Aliens, I watch a lot of paranormal shows, so I could see the fakeness in it. And one of the things that he does on several occasions is he basically reiterates what other people say. And he always says, is it possible? Or perhaps extraterrestrials have visited us, and things like that. Or perhaps this was extraterrestrials. And he just kind of reiterates that thing over and over again. In every episode, he says the same catchphrases, and he doesn't really actually present real scientific evidence. So I have a big issue with that, that he's presenting himself as this ufologist, this archaeologist, when he doesn't actually do that. He, in fact, in the show, he actually meets with real archaeologists or real people, has them explain what they found, and then tries to use that evidence as his own to support the ancient astronaut theorists. And I feel that they frauded a lot of people based on that, and got a lot of money and done these speaking engagements and things where they made millions of dollars based on fraudulent claims. And like I said, I'm not trying to put down the paranormal community. I'm not trying to put down ancient aliens. I just am against Giorgio Tsoukalos and Eric Von Däniken because I believe they are frauds, and I believe they're misrepresenting what the paranormal is. And same thing with Zak Bagans, okay? Ghost Adventures is interesting. It's entertaining, needless to say, but they don't use real scientific method. They don't use real science. Okay, 90% of it is bullshit. And if you watch these episodes, you see now it's just gotten really crazy. He talks to the spirits and he says, get out of here. And he pretends like he's doing his thing, but that's not real. In fact, people have come out and said that Zak Bagans is full of shit, that he come here and said that this place was an Indian burial ground when it wasn't built on an Indian burial ground. And he said that people died here when